the things we didn't talk about is that to pick a knappable material, you need a stone that will break the same no matter which direction you go. And that's basically the definition of good knappable material. In knapping, referring to any kind of stone tool reduction, is as long as no matter how you hit it, it will break the same, you can make a stone tool out of it. If it has a grain to it, then it would be almost impossible to make a tool out of it.
Okay, I follow you. I follow you. I want to do, you've got, let's look at one of the bows you made.
This is probably a better example of something that you would find, have found in being used hundreds of years ago.
And the ripples are not for or were not necessarily a decorative effect, although it looks beautiful. But you were saying earlier that you're sort of following sort of the bends and bumps and knots and so forth in the well, not knots, but
I don't know if it's possible to pick it up. You can see the grain running along here.
Yeah.
And you can see the growth rings are following exactly the way the bow limb is going, which is an example of that.
Okay.
The bark on this bow was probably out here somewhere. So the first thing I do in constructing a bow is I get down to the growth ring that I want to make, where I want to be this part of the bow.
Okay.
Then I try to follow the way the grain of the tree is running this way. And once I have this and this done, then in order to make a bow, the key is as you draw it back, to have the bending be uniformly distributed over the limb. And generally this limb is going to be a little bit shorter, so this limb should be stronger than the upper limb. Once I get this and this captured, then I'll start sanding it and then measuring it. I have a device where I hang the bow like this
For balance.
and then pins going down. And so I'll bend it about this much and then take a straight edge, which I don't have a good example of a straight edge here, but you take a straight edge and just follow the curve like this to see if you're getting uniform bending.
Okay.
And you can, with a straight edge, you can tell if if your straight edge is touching across an entire area, then that means it's not working at all. If you get a big amount of light above your straight edge, you know it's working too much. So you mark the limbs so you know where to remove wood and where not to remove wood from, and then you hang it and you take it down to the next notch and measure again until you get it to full draw and have fairly uniform bending over the entire limb.
Beautiful. Really nice. The tools, getting back to the stones here, this is deceiving. I mean, this looks very heavy, but you pick it up. This is a tool that you made, correct?
Yes.
But you pick it up, and the balance on this, and it looks, very rounded, and yet this has an edge on it, and you're going to demonstrate how this might have been used and how you use it.
This, I actually made this. A friend of mine said that if I made a bow to go hunting with and I didn't use stone tools, that it wouldn't count. So I actually spent weeks making this, and since he has changed his tune a bit, but you can, this is nearly as efficient as a metal tool would be, and the stone that I'm using is something called greenstone. It's about the same hardness of cast iron. So it was a big export for this area because it's one of the ideal stones for stone tools. This is something called an adze, which cuts in a different direction, and was used a great deal for stone tool or woodworking like this. Because you can shape almost anything out of wood, and this type of tool was utilized all over the world.
No doubt about it, it's sharp and does the trick. Very nice. let's see, wanted to, well, before, I guess, using the use of, we talked yesterday about, utilizing every bit of the animal, and this is neat,
Utilizing
the
every bit of the tree.
Yeah.
This quiver has an advantage in that it could be made waterproof very easily, and bark quivers were used in the Northwest where constant rain is a big problem. This wouldn't be very I don't know of any examples of bark quivers being utilized on the East Coast. Most of those were skin, but bark was utilized on the East Coast for a huge variety of things. They made boats, they did their houses with bark. The early settlers were amazed at these houses. They would use the bark like plywood and make these incredible, durable structures.
I just wanted to show, because you're looking at this and you think, how did they hollow that out? But it was, removing the bark and then joining it at the back. We gave away the secret.
And that's a good point. There was, the harvesting of the bark could only be done a certain time of year on most trees. There's a period where they say the bark is slipping. And the early settlers, there was actually a big bark harvesting industry, even up into the 30s,
oh, really?
30s and 40s, mostly for the tanning of hides. Okay. They would use the chestnut bark. This is another example of the way bark could be utilized. This, I was told, is called a berry basket. And I think the reason they call it a berry basket is when the bark is slipping is the same time most berries are ripe.
Okay.
This particular basket was, it came off of a tree that was probably about this big around. The bark is opened up, and then there is this pattern lightly cut into the bottom to not go all the way through it, but to give it a point to fold on.
Okay.
So this is just a fold here. And so if you were out in the woods and you found a big patch of berries, you could go just cut a square out of a tree, make this football-shaped incision, and fold it, and then take and just tie it loosely at the top, and have a quick, easy-to-make container.
And lightweight.
And very lightweight.
That's neat. That is neat. Well, we're going to test our smoke alarm here. In the closing minutes that we have.
Are we down to the closing minutes?
Well, we've got about 4.5 minutes, but there's still plenty of stuff to talk about. But we wanted to fit this in.
Okay, if you can just keep this steady for me.
Keep this.
This is to dispel any myths that fire making was something very difficult for the early Americans.
Holy smoke. I mean, that is smoke.
The first thing is to not get in too big of a hurry, but to build up some dust, which will then capture the coal. Great if I hadn't done that.
What kind of
Still don't have ignition.
what kind of wood is are we using here? That the wood I'm holding is.
The wood you're holding is willow, which is a wonderful material for. It's one of the ideally suited woods. And then the spindle that I'm using is a mullein stalk. And this is going to be one of those, well, embarrassing times when I don't succeed.
Well, we're seeing smoke. I mean, that's That tells us that fire's not far behind. Huh? That's right. Where there's smoke, there's fire. Thank you, Gene.
There, now we have it. Usually I haven't been practicing as much. Now what we have now is a coal. And then once you have a coal, you're there.
So that's all we have on that little piece of deer skin is...
I have a coal, and then I'm moving it to some cedar bark, which has been shredded. At this point, there's no hurry. You can take and go get your firewood now, get it built up, and this could sit for 10 or 15 minutes like this.
Wow. There it is, and we'll... That's... Oh, well, we'll hope that, we'll hope our fire alarm doesn't go off. Michael Sotosanti, thank you. Very hot hand. Thank you very, very much. 635-9125 is the number, and he teaches primitive living skills. He's out of Front Royal, 635-9125. This has been a real treat. I tell you, you had to work for your fire in those days.
Yes, I'm not practicing enough.
Well, no, I mean,
generally
just
I can do it a lot.
But in general, I mean, man and woman had to work for their fire. I mean, it's we're just so used to just striking a match or flicking a switch. But I tell you, very educational. Thank you again, Michael.
Thank you.
Our thanks to you for joining us on Cable Talk, and it looks like we're alarm free. We'll see you next time on Cable Talk. Take care.